Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're like me and you're a princess stuck in a peasant's body and left with a beggar's bank account, it can be a bit hard sometimes to express that inner princess that we all have just hiding, waiting to have that glamorous moment. Well, I found a way to kind of solve the problem, which is making a big, poofy petticoat. So, obviously, if you haven't guessed, that's what this video is about, me making a petticoat. Hey! It is like a tutorial, though I will give full discrepancies. I'm not super happy how I did the waistband, but overall, it came out very well. It came out exactly how I imagined it would, and I'm very happy with it, and I can't wait to get to use it for some of my future cosplays. That wasn't a hint at anything. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the video and get started. So let's go over what you need. A sewing machine and a serger. You need your 40 yards of organza. Mine's 54 inches wide. You'll then need a matching satin ribbon that's about 1.5 inches wide, and I got 50 yards of the stuff. For the waistband, you'll need cotton and elastic, or either interfacing if you're doing a zip-up waistband. So let's go over the basic design of your petticoat. It's in 3 sections and 4 layers. So section 1 has 3 pieces, section 2 has 6 pieces, section 3 9. You don't have to do as many, but just remember that it's best to pretty much go up. So if you're going to do like 2 for the top, do 4, then 6. Okay, so this is how I cut my sections. Instead of using a pattern, I just found it much easier to use my cutting board. And I'm just going to use the width here to trim it off. And that'll be how wide my pieces are. And each piece will be 14 inches tall. And on the left side there is my fold. So we're going to cut off that icky part at the end so I have it nice and tidy. And I just found this the easier way to cut it. And I could cut 2 pieces at one go because I just cut at the 14 and then at the 28. So like I said, you're going to do this for 3 pieces for your top layers, or top sections I mean. And then 6 pieces for my second sections, and then 9 pieces for that bottom one. It's a lot of cutting, and it was very tedious, but not. I would say this whole project was more tedious than hard, except for maybe near the end with the waistband. So yep, you end up with a lot. So once I've gotten everything cut out, I've separated them and labeled them. You could honestly label them even more detailed. I just wanted to kind of count them out. Now I admit I mostly use my serger for this. You don't have to if you don't want to. Organza can fray, so I just found it to be better. And basically here I'm connecting all of my sections. So I'm taking those 3 pieces and connecting them all right there. And let's just speed that up. So once I get that done, I'm then just going to serge the bottom of them. Not the top, because we're going to be ruffling that later. This will just kind of help me remember what's my top and bottom. So then after all that, I got to cut out my ribbon. And basically I'm cutting out 12 yards 4 times, because I'm going to be lining the bottom of each layer, and I actually probably only need about 11.5 yards, but again, rather safe than sorry. I found the best way to do this was using my little wonder clips and just like I pulled out 11 clips and I clipped every yard. And this made it actually go pretty fast. Again, just tedious. And then just cut it. Woo! Okay, some more tedious work. So, to make my life easier when I go and sew it, I'm going to now iron it in half. If you're finding that maybe 1.5 inches might be too hard for you, you can certainly do a 2-inch wide ribbon. I found it to be just fine, and I really highly recommend maybe pinning or clipping this if you want to. I'm just too lazy to do that, so I just pretty much sewed it along and made sure that my organza was inside the ribbon as I went along. This was I mean, I'm glad how it turned out, and I'm glad to have the petticoat, but I won't lie, this was a 5-day project with a lot of breaks needed. So now we're gonna take the serger, and that's how I'm basically going to gather the tops of each section. So you can see I'm setting my serger up to gather. A lot of people showed going with the tension on those needles at 7. I found that did too much, and they showed going to 2, and I found that did too much. So this is what I went with, was probably I guess 1.7 and then like 5s on the 2 needles. And basically you're gonna now serge that part of the organza section that you didn't serge before, so the top of it, if that makes sense. And you can see like my foot had that little divot. I just have to make sure that my gathered wasn't getting stuck under there. So just make sure that the wrong side's facing you on your gathered piece and the wrong side's facing away from you on your not gathered piece. And the not gathered piece is my top section, and I am attaching it to my middle section. And you can see that's why I serged the bottom of each section, because now I know, okay, where is it going to connect? And basically I clip the ends, and then I find the middles and clip from there, and then we're just going to kind of make it all fit. It's a slow process, but totally worth your time, because then you know if you have to like hand gather it, which I found I did. And there was a few pieces I had gathered a bit too much, and that was actually worse to adjust. Because you certainly, gathering on the serger was great, but it was also not so great if I did too much gathering, because it started kind of ripping the organza apart when I went to loosen the gathered parts up. So you may not want to. Overall, it wasn't as that bad of a problem. So once all your sections are put together, you're then going to serge up your back. And I just try and line up kind of everything. So like that's the top section. I'm now getting to the middle section's back and just going down from there. And now we're ready to do the waistbands once you've gotten all 4 layers done. It's pretty straightforward. I just took my waist measurement and added about, I think I added like 2 inches. I didn't take my waist, I took my hip, sorry, hip measurement, added 2 inches. So now I'm putting all my layers on and I'm just slowly gonna stack them. I kind of regretted doing this on the dress form because it started pulling my gathers at the top out, and it made a huge thread mess because, like I said, it just kind of started ripping the organza a bit. It wasn't a huge deal, but oh, I did forget to mention on the waistband, basically at this point all I've sewn up was that short edge, like the back seam, the center seam. And now I've put all 4 layers together, and I'm just trying to match up the back seam. I found was the best way to go, and I'm going to match up all the seams as best as I can. It's just be patient. You're working with a lot of fabric, and yeah. You can definitely lose your patience. I know there were a few times I was definitely losing my patience about some of this stuff, and I think it was definitely at this point that I was getting a bit irritated with the whole waistband part. What's kind of nice though is Organza is so stiff that it was just standing up on its own. So I've gotten it all nice and clipped, and now I gotta put my right side of my waistband to the outside, the right side of my petticoat, and just kind of slide in all those clips now. Like I said, this is where it gets a bit hard. I'm sure there are better ways to maybe do this, but I wanted an elastic waistband because I just feel like it's easier to deal with than a zipper with all these layers. And I'm just very slowly sewing. I chose to sew with my gathers facing at the top, and I just found it was easier to control all the fabric. You could certainly do it by hand if you wanted to, or baste everything by hand first, but it wasn't too bad. Okay, and then we're just gonna sew the top down to the inside and leave a gap for your elastic. So skip to that. Yay, it's sewn. And I'm just gonna do my handy dandy safety pin with elastic and feed it in. I didn't really film this because it was really hard to do. But basically that's it. And this is what I came up with. So just some advice on where to get this much organza and satin ribbon. I highly recommend checking out wedding websites. Here's what it looks like under a skirt. It'll be much more impressive, of course, with crinoline, but I hope you enjoyed this video and it helps you out in some way, and don't forget to subscribe.